Ahead and call this meeting to order. And Kent, do you have a chalice and chalice lighting for us?
I do. This is by Eric Walter Wickstrom. Here today in this place with these people, may we listen so that we can hear. May we hear so that we can feel. May we feel so that we can know, and may we know so that we can change ourselves and the world. May this chalice we light our way.
Thank you. And it looks like Angie joined us, although she was upside down,
It's a thing.
performing some, I don't know, she's like a bat out of hell. All right. The first item on our process observer. So first of all, is there someone who would like to volunteer to be our process observer? We'll just have some comfortable silence here until somebody volunteers.
I was just thinking, you all remember how I had to send you a second report after the meeting last time. So it wasn't very successful is what I mean.
Dennis, is that something you could do? Can't hear you.
Never done.
'cause you're-
Yep.
Well, good experience then. All you have to do is observe how we interact with each other and give us some feedback
Okay,
at the end. And so how well we listen to each other, how we conduct business. And how efficient we are. Or not. Okay, Millie, you never bark like this. You have to do it in the middle of the agenda. And I'm sorry about this. She never does this. You need to go outside. Go bark at them outside. I don't know what she's seeing out there. I'm sorry. So is there a motion to approve the agenda, or does anybody have any additions to the agenda for tonight?
I move we approve the agenda.
Thank you, Sue. Is there a second? Looks like Chris seconded. So all those in favor? Anybody opposed? That's usually what I ask. Okay, so we will go on to the action agenda, and we have a couple, well, we have one guest tonight. And on the action agenda is the fiscal year 2021 budget, and I believe Stephanie is going to be presenting that to us tonight and talking about that.
Oops. Okay. Yeah, I thought Mike was going to join us, but maybe he got tied up. But what we're presenting tonight is the original request from last month. And to that, the adjustments that we made two different, or actually three different kinds of adjustments that we had talked about last time. One that those items that we know we're going to save money next year due to being virtual and due to the park closure, those are highlighted in blue on the budget. And then what I'll call the discussion items are highlighted in red. So I just thought maybe the best thing to do is just kind of walk through this, let you digest it, and then open it for discussion. So the estimated pledges were as of a couple of weeks ago, the 12th or so. Bradley, that's still a decent estimate, isn't it?
Yeah, if anything, I'm guessing a couple thousand higher.
That we will be able to raise it higher, or it's too high?
So right now we're at 264 received, and my average of the guesses, which is what we went with for this draft of the budget, is now 289.
289. Okay, so we're in better shape. Good.
Yeah, even the latecomers that are coming in stronger, which is good.
Excellent. Okay. So then to scroll down to the a lot of the discussion points fall into that salaries section. So you'll see the two things that we know we're going to save on, or we're assuming we're going to save on, is Jamila is not using UU benefit. She's staying on her parents' policy. And then the other line item is we are assuming that that membership position will not be filled from January through June. Now, the line that's right below that then is a potential savings for discussion in red, based on kind of the is it realistic to think that that position would even be filled in July? If we delayed it till October, which may be a realistic number, there would be savings of $3,150 built into that. The other potential savings is if there was a salary freeze, that would save another $3,200. And basically, we're offering those up as possibilities to get the number down below a $10,000 deficit, which we had kind of talked about last time as being our goal. But again, that's certainly up for discussion. I think it might be easy if I just kind of finish running through some of this and then open it back up for discussion. One of the other points that we had talked about was moving $5,000 from the unrestricted net assets down into the designated fund. And then that could be where things like computer hardware, furniture and equipment, and there's one more down below, could be paid from. And that's kind of what we had talked about last year, but didn't have a good way to operationalize it. One thing we will do, it's not in the budget yet, but we will add a footnote saying that that $5,000 transfer would be made. And then when you as a board approve the budget, you would also be approving that transfer. So that would not need to come before you again. So then sliding on down into the utility section, this is a combination of a couple of things. We kind of realized that historically utilities have been a little bit over budgeted. So we were able to knock those back. I'll call those as quote permanent reductions. And also we're hoping to realize some savings from the new solar panels that we invested in. And then in addition to that, we are thinking we would save about $2,600 from the building being shut. So again, that's another one of those blue lines. Similarly, we think we would save about $2,500 from snow removal because we won't be needing as much snow removal this winter. And then a couple of the other blue items are down in the RE area. We are assuming that January through May will be virtual, and that gives us savings, one-time savings this year of $7,300. A lot of that being in the childcare line item. We're also assuming that the summer camp will not happen this year, another blue item. And I think that's the last of the blue items. So what that brings us down to is a deficit budget of $8,547. If indeed our pledges are, like Bradley said, that is only a deficit of 6547. So, you may want to consider adding some of those, one or more of those red items back into the budget, be it the salaries or trying to fill the membership coordinator position in July. So that's really all I have. So I'll turn it back over for discussion.
Thank you, Stephanie. Looks like a lot of thought was put into this, and a lot of calculations and line by line, and we really appreciate that work of the committee.
And actually, I was just going to add, by adding them as lines, we hope that might make it more transparent than what we used to do, is actually have full sheets, because I know people were always, oh, what's getting hidden? What's getting hidden? So we thought maybe those line items might make it a little bit more overt.
So what questions do people have about the budget? And welcome, Jane.
I have a quick question regarding savings from RE. I could tell you from the perspective of someone who teaches popcorn theology right now. I've been having Alexandria as one of the paid childcare workers, and she's been joining me as one of the other adults in the virtual room.
Okay.
Are we planning on keeping her employed through the spring, and is that kind of built into the budget? And I just wanted to throw that out onto the floor for the and it's not entirely clear if there's going to be any other RE instructors that are going to be in a similar position where they're, instead of having 2 RE volunteers teaching on a Sunday, are we going to have a paid young adult in a paid position joining with that instruction, and are we going to be paying for it and built into the salaries that we are building into the budget? So this, I don't think that we need a response right now, but something to cogitate on between now and next month.
The budget was built with no childcare or RE support for the first 5 months.
Right.
I thought that, in fact, we were continuing to pay childcare workers and have them assist, like Chris just indicated. Or is that just through this year?
My hope was that that would continue for 2 reasons, of a low number of volunteer RE teachers and the requirement to have 2 people in a room, whether it's virtual or real, just for safety purposes and for not just for the safety of the children, but for the safety of the one teacher. Additionally, at the time that we do open, it's not always easy to hire childcare providers, and we have a very good team. So I thought it was philosophically a strong way of maintaining good childcare providers with less hours than they would normally have, but nonetheless, many of them are college students and every little bit helps. So my hope is that we would be able to continue that.
So that's not built in, Stephanie, is that what you said?
No, it's not. And I'll need some assistance with what that number would look like.
And I think Jamila could help with that.
Okay.
I can,
Okay.
because I'm the one who does the payroll, so.
Okay.
I think that's a good question that you brought up, Chris, and something to really consider. I like
It's
the
not gonna be
idea
a
of,
big it's not going to be a big
keeping-
dollar amount.
keeping those folks employed and keeping them so we have the 2 in the classroom each Sunday.
Right now, we're actually utilizing 4, but we've reworked our minimum time requirements. So when we're in person, we have a 2-hour minimum that payout. And while we're virtual, we're doing a 1-hour minimum payout. And then they are doing some lesson planning on their own for the large group activities. And that we have not attached a minimum to, because we figure they can do it on their own schedule, their own time. It's not forced. So that's much more exact. So that right there is actually going to save quite a lot, keeping it as tight as possible.
You know what the number is, Bradley, or approximately?
Not really off the top of my head.
So about how many hours is it a week? With 4 people, 4 hours?
It's probably, 5 just to be safe. And then they're $12 an hour. So you can kind of go from there, I guess.
So 60 a week
A week, okay.
times however many weeks there are, and
It's 3,100.
31. Okay.
so that might be a good thing to put in there.
Okay, so if we put that in, but with the increased revenue, that puts us at a projected budget deficit of 9647.
Okay.
If you keep the membership position not starting until October and salary freezes.
Well, I think at this point, figuring out when it will be appropriate to hire someone for membership is really an unknown. I'm really anxious to have a person as soon as we can make use of that person. But how do we know when that will be?
Right.
And do you have any thoughts on that?
I don't really see the position coming on board until we're at least doing some on-site meeting. Because one of the issues of bringing on a new employee is the large amount of time it takes to train them and establish the programming, and we're pretty stretched as it is.
Mhm.
That it would be challenging. Not that it won't be challenging. It's always challenging when you bring on a new employee, but the chances are better that we would be able to devote more time and have a better outcome when we are in a more normal context, whatever that means too. We may never be in a normal context again.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it seems to take a long time to find this kind of person. So I suppose part of my thing is, when do you start? Anyway, for me, that's a really high priority.
And I agree. And I think that if we get the right person to come along, and they could drive increased membership, which would then pay for itself with increased, contributions.
And that's certainly some of the conversation we had last year at this time.
And the year before, really.
So, yeah, our staff and minister are stretched right now because doing these virtual Sundays takes a lot of time. And then even when we do open up, we're looking at a hybrid kind of thing where we'll have some streaming, and I don't know if that's going to be more time for these folks or if things will ease up at that point. I'm guessing maybe more time because there'll be, if we do some in-person stuff as well as live streaming, and our minister has to be someplace where he's protected. Yeah, and we're talking about maybe additional equipment and things like that for live streaming.
Do we have any of that in the budget, Stephanie? There's no equipment.
Not really. I mean, the Sunday Services Committee built in for additional licensing, and I think the thought was that that may have been a high number, so there may be some flexibility in that.
But
Because that really wasn't nailed down.
But we're also talking about equipment. And we-
And that could come out of endowment.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I was thinking, that it probably, once we identify what we need to come out of an endowment.
Endowment. Or Dream It Up and Do It would also be a good source for that kind of a thing, because that is transformational.
There
Uh-huh.
there are
Yes,
several
definitely.
several sources. So one big component of technology for a hybrid system is the Fireside Room project, which currently has 2,000 set aside. And then there's also quite a lot sitting in just the general memorial gifts. So that's the unnamed, undesignated money. There's almost 5,000 there. So that could probably get us there and then some.
Oh. On the subject of staff increases, I have no idea how to think about that, except that we said last year we were trying to keep up with the UUA fair compensation plan. And so if we can do that, it feels like we should do that. You can see I'm a big spender, Stephanie.
Whatever you all want. I'm just the bean counter. I can delete lines just as easy as I can add lines.
So are there other big spenders in this group? There
Well-
used to be people who were the opposite of big spenders. That was always a good thing.
Well, in the past, it seems like we've, budgeted in deficits, but ended up with surpluses.
Yeah,
That's right.
Mhm.
yeah, I tend to be more generous, I guess, in budgeting, figuring.
Well, honestly,
A budget is a plan, and I
Yeah.
do budgeting every day, and it's a plan, and things don't always go to. So you have to have some flexibility. It's not going to be to the dollar on every line.
well, when it comes to salaries, if we don't at least keep up with inflation, then employees are losing money.
And the percentages were off the top of my head were right around 1.5%. They were different for different people because the UUA matrix was different for everyone, but it was about 1.5%.
Fine. Why wouldn't we do that?
Well, we have some really fine staff, and each year that they have experience, they
More valuable.
become even more valuable. And I think it's very much a disincentive if we don't keep up with what we should be doing.
So where does that put us, Stephanie?
That would be another 32. It puts us about, round numbers, about a $12,000 deficit.
Perfect. No, what do you all think?
I would just speak on, I speak on behalf of the staff and mostly on behalf of myself, that you have a very dedicated staff that no matter what happens, this group of people is so committed to this fellowship. And in speaking for myself, but I think I'm also speaking for Bradley and Jamila, in a climate where many people have not had the continuation of their professional life because of this pandemic. I feel fortunate to still have my job at the level that I'm at, and working harder, though, it would also be appreciated. And I know that Jamila and Bradley are deserving of raises and would appreciate that too.
So is what I'm hearing,
Are there other questions?
I think that there's a sentiment that we wouldn't be having a salary freeze, that we would reinstate the increases
Okay.
as originally contemplated.
Okay. I will put that back in there. Like I said, that'll put us about 12,000. So the next, the quote, final reading of the budget will be next month then. But I think we decided last year that we needed to have the budget hearings before that, because we were saying, well, now we're going to invite membership in to make comment, but the board's already approved the budget. So are you all in agreement that between now and the next board meeting, we should have the hearings?
Offer times for members to meet with you.
Yes. Yes.
I'm seeing people nodding. Assuming that means yes.
Would you all like to see this revised budget before we share it with the membership? So like we could put it together real fast, maybe send it, I could send it to Bradley and he could share with you all and you all can say, yeah, this is what we wanted. I would be more comfortable before we share with membership that you all are good with it. Okay, I will do that then. And then we can talk about when to do the hearings. I'll talk to Bradley about mechanically, does it make sense to do one before the service, or is the breakout rooms too complicated? I'll work with Bradley on that. So I think I have all the information that we need. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for being there.
If I could quickly
Yes.
interject, I think it's important, when we're looking at a deficit, a potential budgeted deficit that size, maybe some historical perspective is important here. So in fiscal year 2018, we budgeted a $5,000 deficit and we came out about 3,800 ahead. And then in 2019, we budgeted 8,800 deficit and we came out 6,500 surplus. And then this year, which is of course kind of the exception, we have budgeted $6,700 deficit, and thus far we are at an $18,000 surplus. So I think just in those last several years, we have a very strong trend of coming out a lot farther ahead than we think. So I think it'll be just fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do too. I think there's some wiggle room in some of those line items too. So I think we're going to be good too.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you for your feedback, and we will get you a new budget.
Well, Stephanie,
Yes.
thank you to you personally and to the rest of the finance committee for all the hard work that you guys have put into this effort. It's not
You're
easy,
welcome.
but,
You're welcome. Glad to help. We'll see you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on. So the next item on our agenda is the consent agenda, and there are September minutes and committee reports. And has everybody had a chance to look at that? And would there be a motion to approve the consent agenda? I didn't, was that Dennis? My
Yeah.
sound's kind of weird here. Okay, so Dennis moved. And is there a
I'll
second?
second. I'll second.
Thanks, Jane. Is there anybody who's opposed to approving the consent agenda? So we'll go ahead and approve that and move on to the board liaison reports. So in your packet, there were committee reports. So the board liaison reports would be any of our board members who have liaised with their respective committees if they had anything to report. Hearing nothing, it sounds like we can go ahead and move on. I think the committees that are active already turned in their minutes or their reports, so we have a lot of committees that are kind of on hold. The next item, 6 on our agenda, is the treasurer's report. And so I will turn that over to,
Now, this is going to be a real quick. The status for the checking account is that we are at just as of at least the end of last month, just slightly below, 1/12 of the the annual operating budget. So, and that's kind of our goal, is to have 1 month of operating expenses in checking account. And we're still waiting for some transfers to cover the tree removal and the Shive Hattery roof appraisal. And so pending those transfers, we'll be in really good shape, but we're not in bad shape right now. So just to put that in perspective. And the other thing to comment on, I guess, was that I participated in a couple of finance committee meetings. Well, more like I was more of an observer as a board liaison over the last couple weeks. And so, no, I think we're in good shape finance-wise, pending those transfers. And I think that Bradley's on top of those. So nothing else to really comment on. Okay, Sarah?
are there any questions? Thank you, Chris.
I just want to make a quick comment to the fact that we are in such good shape financially. That's quite a deal, especially given the nature of the year.
Well,
Contributions are coming in a really strong way. And it's been an amazing time this all year and looking ahead to next year as well.
and I think that it's a reflection not only of our membership and their commitment, but also that, we're fortunate to be in a community where, the job losses have not been nearly as widespread locally as in other parts of the country. And, I know that, I personally have taken the hit and other people have taken the hit, but it's a matter of prioritization.
Yeah, from my perspective, there are 3 really big components. The first is the economic security of the community has been really strong, like Chris was saying. The second is the work in the last couple of years to really encourage people to prioritize the fellowship in their charitable giving, and that's helped a lot. I think that's kept people from calling me up and saying, hey, let's cut back my pledge payment. And then third is the fact that we have that in-house managed electronic funds transfer. Because when you have to call and tell the person who you're paying that you need to reduce your pledge. I mean, we don't shame them, of course, but it is harder than when it's something that is self-donor managed. And I know that explicitly from a very similar congregation across town.
All right, is there a motion to accept the treasurer's report?
So moved.
Thank you, Dennis. A second?
Second.
Is anybody against accepting the treasurer's report? All right, that's passed, and we will move on to our minister's report. And Kent gave, I thought, a very complete and interesting report that was included in your packet, a lot of new information and things to consider. And Kent, would you like to expound on anything or add anything to your report?
Thank you, Sarah. And I have nothing to add to the report. I just want to shine a light on the collegial conversations that Mid-America has organized that for clergy, for administrators, for religious educators, and also for lay leaders, whether professional or volunteer leaders. There's a link there where I would encourage you as leaders of this congregation, if you have time, the meetings are an hour long. And it is a room of, the one that I was in was 15 other clergy, all serving congregations of a similar size to us. So you would be in a room with lay leaders who are probably facing many of the same challenges and opportunities that we are. And I found the conversation to be extremely helpful and affirming, and made me feel a lot less alone. So if you can, I'm going to continue doing that. And I know Bradley attended the administrators. Was that today, Bradley? And I'll be attending the membership meeting tomorrow. The second thing I'd like to put a highlight on has a deadline of October 25 in 4 days. That there is a year-long program, which is actually 8 months. So it's a commitment of 4 people to meet monthly for 8 months. And it's called Retooling for New Realities, which is a similar discussion, except it will be facilitated with by UUA staff and other professional facilitators in areas of church dynamics. I think that this is a very great way to learn about how we can be more sustainable in using and utilizing what we've learned from this pandemic, because in addition to being an extraordinarily challenging time, it's been a very rich time of learning, and kind of surprising to many of us in the midst of exhaustion of how we've learned and are hopeful for our future. But there is a fee of 1.5% of the budget, which would be about $350. But before I could register, I would need to have the 4 names of people. And I would give any of you on the board an opportunity to choose first. Or first, I need you to decide if we should do this. There are other lay leaders that I could invite to participate. And also, since this is a learning opportunity for me, and I have not used a fair amount of my professional expenses, I could pay for part or all of this fee. So those are the 2 things that I wanted to bring up. I would invite you into a brief conversation about retooling for new realities and get your thoughts on that.
When do they meet, Kent?
They didn't give a schedule. I suspect that the cohort teams will set their dates. either that or when they schedule the facilitators, the dates will be set.
I just browsed to the page and it reads to me that it says at least 4 leaders.
Yeah,
So
it can be.
it sounds like you could have more if more wanted to attend.
Yep.
But we don't know when it's being
Yeah.
offered.
Right.
I believe it's starting in November, I believe.
Like evenings or during the daytime
I'm
or
I'm guessing evenings. Don't know for sure.
We could
Uh-huh.
call and ask them that. I see they had sample sessions, but they were last week, so we missed them.
yeah, and I really haven't had a chance. It's interesting to me. I'd be interested, but it just kind of depends on how it works in my schedule.
I will make a phone call or an email. I'll send an email tonight and follow up with a phone call to Sharon Dittmar tomorrow.
Okay.
And send out an email to all of you. And hopefully we can move fast on this. I have a feeling that they would give us a day if we really needed one.
Is
I
there
think
anybody
in-
else that's interested?
I'm
Angie?
interested in our participating, that I think we should have a presence in this kind of thing.
Mhm.
I'm
So-
interested in the idea of change, but I'm even more interested in supporting people who are half my age to, or 5/8 my age or something to do this.
That's funny. So it looked like Angie raised her hand and I indicated interest.
So that would be 3 of us. If it were convenient and worked. Also, just to note, there is some, they indicated that there would be some study work in between sessions.
I could fit in some study. Or pretend I studied.
Your
But it-
minister could do the reading and send you a bullet list.
Tell us what it said.
Instead of Cliff Notes, it would be Kent Notes.
You have time to fit that into your schedule?
Yeah.
So, so then if we're interested, we complete our own applications. Is that correct? Is that the process?
No, I can do the application for everybody.
Okay,
The application has you list all 4 people and their contact information.
okay. So is there a 4th person we could ask?
I was thinking someone from membership, like perhaps Jamie Gerganis might be a good person to participate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she might be interested.
I think I would also reach out to the Religious Education Committee
Yes.
and see if any of them would be interested in doing it, because I think there's some really dynamic things happening across Mid-America with religious education based on my conversation with the ministers.
Mm-hmm.
And I
And
think what
that's-
we're doing is very good too.
And some of those people might fit Sue's criteria. Okay,
So I will get back to you tomorrow.
all right, thank you, Kent. Is there anything else that you want to report on in your minister's report?
No, that's it, unless any of you have questions for me.
Can't you
Well, I-
mention specific topic gatherings? And I didn't see where that came from.
Where?
Where did you locate those?
Oh, you mean for the retooling?
No, for the specific topics like membership and as opposed to general leadership.
Oh, we got direct emails from Mid-America.
Oh, okay.
I'm glad you had a chance to meet in a clergy session, Kent. I sat in on a Soul Matters Zoom meeting today with people from all over the country talking about planning for the day after the Sunday after the election, and ideas exchanged and stuff like that. And it is really helpful to hear other people's experiences and expectations and ideas. So, and the fact that Bradley got to do and connect as well, it just, yeah, it helps you to not feel so alone in these times, especially. Anything else? Anybody have any other questions for Kent regarding our minister's report? So we will go ahead and accept that report and move on to the next item in our agenda, which is, I have to find the agenda first. Is the rest of the action agenda. And so the first thing there is our annual meeting agenda. That's on page 15, and it's the first reading of that meeting. And one of the things we're doing at the meeting is the proposed offertory recipients, which is on page 16. So has everybody had a chance to look that over?
Do we have to do the whole year at once? I like the fact that this year we did some things that were timely and got a great response. And it's kind of hard to know a year from now what might fit that category.
Sue, do you think it would be okay if we had this, but then have subject to change based on current events or something along those lines? Just so we have fillers if we don't happen to have something that comes up, that this is what we'll do,
Yeah.
but each one of these is subject to change if something happens.
And I
current.
think we did some of that this year.
Yeah. So I think we could have some sort of like asterisk or some sort of disclaimer saying, this is if nothing happens in the year.
I just call it tentative.
Yes, thank you. That's what I meant.
That it might be subject to change depending on other priorities that may come up during the year.
Do we continue our ongoing Black Lives Matter and our partner church? Or is that to the end of this year?
Good question.
Do we continue to get contributions in those, Bradley?
Black Lives Matter in particular has really dropped off.
Okay.
The first month in June was 970. July was 75. August was 275. September was 75. And October so far is 20. I think, yeah, it's one of those things you've got to really, really highlight it periodically if you really want it to get a lot of traffic. It's the same with the partner church. We had another surge around the Harvest Communion.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is
Well,
it
that seems
possible?
legitimate.
Oh, sorry, Sue, go ahead.
In the Sunday service, I've been a little intentional the last month of not hitting those too hard because the focus needed to be on the pledge campaign.
Yes, thank you.
And as we move forward after a successful pledge campaign, we can readdress both of those.
Yeah. But maybe they only go to the end of the year and then they're reconsidered, or we start something new.
That's what I was going to suggest, that we continue till the end of the year and then reassess. You know, we never know what's going to happen after the election. And so I say we keep it going
Hmm.
at least until the end of this year.
And Loyosh and I have been communicating more often, more regularly, and they're still not able to hold their camps. And a lot of, are having that continue, I think needs to be based on their needs if they're unable to continue their feeding the elderly. And I know they appreciated our help. And it made a huge difference.
As far as the Black Lives Matter movement goes, we're kind of fortunate in a way that the local Central Iowa movement is not really the most organized. So there's, they are as far as events, but not as far as financing things and what needs to be financed, etc. So there are a number of options that we can pursue to kind of refresh that as we deem necessary. The first one, just we as staff chose that it would go to the local bail project. And the next chunk can go to something that's related, because really Black Lives Matter is an umbrella entity, more or less.
Mhm.
So regarding the agenda for the annual meeting that comes up in December, it's sounding like we are fine right now with this list of proposed offertory recipients, and with the stipulation that we would be able to make some changes as a board based on specific needs that come up or might, I won't say the word trump, but might cause us to have to adjust or want to adjust or add another recipient in place of another. And I guess we've discussed right now continuing what we're doing with Partner Church and Black Lives Matter through the end of the year. So I don't know if we want to bring that back up in December at our board meeting, because it doesn't need to be on this agenda here for the annual meeting. As far as the rest of the annual meeting, with the call to order, opening words, parliamentarian approval, we're going to vote on the fiscal year budget and vote on the candidates, do the proposed offertory split, recognize outgoing board members, and then do closing words. Kind of all short and sweet. And the last meeting we talked about not including any like major changes or changes to bylaws and stuff like that, because we're all kind of burned out about all that stuff, and hold that off maybe for another year. So does this, with this first reading of our annual meeting agenda, is there anything else anybody wants to add or discuss about it?
So historically, we've done this in the 11 o'clock hour. When do we want to do this? Because right now we're having service at 11.
Oh. Wow, that's a really good question.
How about noon?
Yes, you're right.
Are people going to show up if we do it at noon?
A lunch meeting. I don't know, is there a way you can keep people from leaving the Zoom room?
One possibility, I think there's an expectation that we'll have a service at 11, and there are people who really count on that. That said, we could do a really shortened service. We could do like a little music, a little reading, a little inspiration,
And then a little meeting.
and then a little meeting. And then if the meeting is short enough, we can have a little more music.
And some coffee.
That has to be the title. A little this, a little that, that kind of.
Well, and don't we need a certain quorum, right? Certain
Yes.
Yeah.
I just was figuring that out. So we're going to be at that point. We're going to be less than 220 members, but right now we're floating right around 220, and 15% is 33. So that seems pretty doable.
33 members. I like that idea of having a little shorter service,
Well, in the
a
past,
little shorter meeting.
in the past, we've had people sign in, right?
Yeah, that's,
there a
I
way
think,
of-
our next discussion here. How are we going to do that and how are we going to vote?
So sign in, we just won't worry about because I'll have a list. It'll just naturally be there. As far as voting, that's really the big question. Some congregations have had good success with doing like voice voting or raising your hand. It just takes a little longer. Some congregations have used the polling feature in Zoom. I haven't played around to see if that can accommodate like multiple answers per screen. So some congregations have done a Google form. Some have used a texting service, and some have done it. We present the material, and then you receive a card in the mail, and you turn the card in. So you don't have immediate results in that last case. So there are any number of avenues it can go. I guess what would be most helpful is to know if any of those really sounded like absolutely not.
I would like to say that the voice and the hand with the Zoom would be an absolutely not. I would like to see using some other software. You know, if you can figure out the polling, great with Zoom. But I know there's lots of, but it would require people to go out of Zoom to do it. You know, the voting thing that you constantly get when you go to conferences. I was trying to find the name because I just did it today. I was in a conference where I had to do that. But I think it would make more sense to use something like that. I think the polling in Zoom probably would be the best choice. But
do we foresee
like if we could do
if we opt for like a third party thing? So that would be a similar experience to, I don't know if you remember, fairly close to the beginning of the pandemic, we did a word cloud in the middle of service. It would be a very similar experience to that. My concern there, and I don't know if it's unfounded or not, is we have a number of people who tune in on things like iPads and iPhones or cell phones.
Or just telephone.
And it
Yeah,
can
cell
be,
phone.
and I know a few of them have trouble flipping back and forth between apps. And I don't know if that's just a couple and that's just what I'm aware of, or if it's more.
I'm concerned about, there's a number of people that, even though they've been using Zoom for a while, still on Sunday mornings struggle about seeing who's there and having, you know, just basic stuff on Zoom. And adding an external kind of another electronic app seems like it might be a little overwhelming for some of those folks and scary.
So we've done absentee balloting in the past. So we could do something like, if you would like to submit your vote in advance, here's how you can do it.
Yeah, I was just looking at it. It looks like Doodle has a voting feature that you could use.
Cool.
Yeah, Doodle. So I don't know. Sending a link that they can just click and go to, you know. Yeah.
If I can
It'll be
give a
a
little bit input into that, I teach every day, 5 days a week, using Blackboard Collaborate, which is similar to Zoom. And in the first couple weeks of the semester, I would just give some fun polling questions, like, you know, and just to get the students used to answering poll questions just for fun. It doesn't count for anything. And then after that, I started easing them into more serious survey questions. And so the reason I'm saying this is that maybe we can use that as a way of easing the fellowship into using the polling features between now
That is a great idea.
and the December annual meeting.
So in a Sunday service, we could have a poll about something.
Yeah.
Like, how are you feeling today? Or, you know,
You're a genius, Chris. A genius.
Oh, believe me, I've been on video conferences for about 12 hours today, so my eyes are about shot.
oh my gosh.
I feel your pain.
I haven't been on that long, but yeah. I'm a little fatigued.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. What do you think about that, Kent?
I like it. And I think that one of the things that we could ask questions on if they want topics for breakout rooms or something like that.
Have you voted yet?
Or
No,
or
don't
would
go
you
there.
or would you
Don't go
want
there.
to have a Vespers service once a week for 20 minutes?
I would vote for the light and breezy, like what Chris said, just fun pools so that it's not something that gets people fired up. You know, I think that if it's just fun, like what's your favorite fall color? I don't know. It just light and breezy at first, I think would be good.
If you could choose a different color for the minister's hair, what would it be?
Purple.
Okay, I think I have enough to go.
You got
for
it.
now, guys.
You got it, Bradley.
think we're good.
All right. So do we have to do any action with this? Like
No.
accept?
No,
Okay.
it's a first read. So
All right. So is there anything else anybody wants to say about this first read before we move on to the next thing on our agenda? Which is the roof task force update on page 16 and 17, and it is 7:38. So we're supposed to be at that at 7:25.
Wow.
Um,
So Larry is now sitting next to me.
Hello,
Hi,
everyone.
Larry.
take it away, Larry.
Oh. Hey, Larry,
for being here.
welcome. Are you giving us a report?
I can give a
Thanks for
brief
all the work
report.
that you're doing on this. Oh my gosh, progress.
Well, you all are aware that we did have a report from Shive Hattery on our roof. And we're pleased with the work that they did. We aren't necessarily pleased with the money we have to come up with, but that's a different story. Implementing the recommendations that they have come up with is really easier said than done. It seems that every contractor in the state is totally engulfed right now in working on repairs from the storm in August. I talked to a contractor last week. The answer on the telephone was a machine. It said, "We're totally swamped now. You can leave a message if you like, and we'll try to get back to you." So that gives you some idea of what is happening. We are proceeding to try to get some work done on the emergency repairs. That would be a fairly minor item. I don't know if we'll be successful in that or not. We are still working toward getting a major segment of the work on the roof done next spring or summer, and we will be talking to you about that later on. There is one item right now that I would like to get board consideration of. This came up in the review of the roof situation. The engineer who looked at it also looked at the chimney and said, you've got some problems here. You probably need to tuck point the chimney and get some repairs done. And that took us back a little. The estimated cost for that work was about $4,600. Actually, Bradley came up with a suggestion and said, do we need a chimney? And we looked into that a bit more. Chimneys are not a part of most construction these days unless you have a wood burning fireplace, which we do not. The chimney originally had one flue for the furnace and one flue for the fireplace. The furnace has since been converted to a high efficiency furnace and vented out through the wall. The only thing that is utilizing the chimney that we have right now is the fireplace. It is a gas fireplace. It does work. We fired it up. According to Bradley, that's probably the only time that it has been used in his memory. So it's not something that that is a vital part of our lives. So what we are looking at, what we would like to have board consideration of, is taking the gas burner out of the fireplace, replacing it with a good electric fireplace. And then as part of the roof repair, we would take the chimney down to the roof level, patch the hole, and put new membrane over the entire roof. So that would eliminate any problems with repair of the chimney forever. It would give us some ambiance in the fireside room. You could have the fireplace going with the flick of the switch. And it just seems like a better long-term solution. So I would like to have your consideration of that. If you think that's something we should do, we will go ahead and get quotes and specifications for a new fireplace, electric fireplace. And then when we do the work on the roof, we will plan to take the chimney down. Now this does change the makeup of the fireside room a bit. So I think it's worth your consideration. Is this something you want to do, want to have done?
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Larry.
A song comes to my mind. It goes like, forever and ever, hallelujah, hallelujah. But what do the rest of you think?
I would just
But-
add to the conversation that prior to Bradley, I only recall the fireplace being used at most 3 times before Bradley arrived, but there have been a significant number of times when people would have liked to have had the ambiance and the warmth of a fire, but didn't know how to start it. So I really like this idea.
Yeah, I know I used it once when we had a New Year's Eve thing with the campus young adults, and I don't even know if that was before Bradley or after Bradley. He's sort of like Jesus.
Yeah. B,
I only know
Before
because
chimney and after chimney.
I only know because I'm the only one with the instruction sheet,
Oh.
and you definitely need it.
So, thoughts from people?
I think
There-
we'll probably have a couple people here and there who are a little bitter about it being gone, but I think it makes more sense to have something that is more reasonable to use. And I don't know, maybe it's not quite the same if there's not actually something burning, but if you can actually use it and all that, I think it would get used a lot more if you just flipped a switch. And there are some pretty nice fake fires out there, I guess, if that's what we're looking for.
The technology has changed a lot in the last few years, and there are some quality units available.
That's what I have at home is electric.
Mine's propane, and it is just a flick of a switch too. So it's easy as well. Just throwing that out there.
Melissa, what do you think the concern would be or the objection?
That's the way it's always been.
Oh,
Just that type of thing where we've had it for a long time, and people, some people just don't want things to change. But I think that would be the primary reluctance in my mind, at least.
Nostalgia.
What about you, Dennis? What do you think? Are you okay with changing it out?
You're muted, Dennis. Can you unmute?
I would think that it makes sense in terms of the roof. If we're going to be doing something major with the roof, it sounds like that it makes a more sensible way to handle the roof. I don't know who would be
Jane, your
around.
thoughts?
Susan Franzen or someone that was around when it was originally conceived to do it, somebody that might, from historical perspective, have a need to keep it as an actual burning fireplace, but I haven't heard any great feelings expressed about it.
I think for me, I would want to document it. If we did change it, take before and after shots, just to say, this is what the chimney looked like. This is the fireplace we had, and this is the year we converted it, just so the story isn't forgotten.
good point.
But I'm okay with, we do that a lot at my work when we're destroying something, is we take a bunch of pictures and say, this is what it looked like before we took it away to build a road. Here's your pamphlet.
That's a good idea.
It is.
Well, I think it's better to have a fireplace you could use than one you can't use, right? So I think it makes perfect sense, especially if you're doing the roof already.
So it's sounding to me like we have a consensus that we would go ahead and go along with this group's recommendation to take out the gas and put in the electric. And then at some point, get rid of the chimney so we no longer have that problem. And thank you for asking that question, Bradley. That shows a lot of wisdom.
Larry, how much are you wanting to come back to the board on this particular item? Are you wanting us to approve like a cap, or you want to come back with some proposals?
I think we'll go ahead and get a quote on a unit and bring that back to the board so you can see what it looks like and how much it costs.
Sounds good.
So it sounds to me like we've given you the blessing. Larry, do we have to formalize it in any other way with a vote, Bradley?
No, not until there's money.
I have a question.
Yes,
This is the chimney that goes through the youth room, right?
it is. Yeah.
Okay, so I heard Jamila said that are we considering taking out that divider in the youth room? Because there's this the chimney is in a little awkward position, and I know Jamila said that she really dislikes it.
Well, that
Is that-
that's something that could be worked into a bid. I think probably what's most likely is some sort of a phased approach. So the thing with the roof part is that that's the needed. That's like we can't get away without doing that. We need to do that. So that might be a possibility. We don't really know because we don't know what it would cost. But
Okay.
we can look into it.
That's a great question, Jaden. I'm glad you brought that up. So that would be within that wall that kind of divides that room. I didn't know that was where the chimney was.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was a chimney either. Thanks for bringing
And
that
that's the
up.
purpose. It's not a weight-bearing wall. It's just a encumbrance, something that's kind of in the way.
Yeah, I believe so.
All right. Well, thanks for bringing that up. That's, I think, something that we can consider.
All right, great.
All right. So Larry, you can go forth and do great things.
Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
for bringing that. All righty. Further down on our agenda is the closure checkpoint. And I believe that means at this point, we had said we would stay, this is one of the points, October, where we're looking at, do we want to stay closed or not?
I would say
And-
absolutely yes, because we are experiencing as a state an uptick in the hospitalizations.
So
And
that's,
this is supposedly we're experiencing the summer, or excuse me, the winter surge that had been predicted.
I saw a report today that on this day, we recorded, sadly, the highest number of deaths that we have since this whole thing began.
It was 31, right? 31 today?
And yeah, I can't
Yeah.
see any way that we can open.
So along with this, it's good for us to note that the task force, the regathering task force, has had an opportunity to meet once, and we will meet our second time tomorrow. And we are starting to look at what phases would be and benchmarks for reopening. And then we'll get into the nitty gritty. But before we move from this, we should probably determine or
next,
throw a
next
guesstimate
one.
at the next one.
Do you want to go January? So it's quarterly? Does that work for everybody?
Yeah,
Okay,
because
so-
there'll be some new members of the board, so it'll be good for them to get a fresh set of eyes.
Well,
You're
in the
not-
task force,
You're not saying that because you're going off the board, are you, Chris?
No, I'm serious. Practically speaking, I mean, half of us here are going to be replaced, at least.
Yep.
Probably. So
I was wondering if the Zach Witherspoon's usage was moving ahead.
Yes, it is. It is scheduled for November 15th. Yes, 15th, sometime in the evening. And I'll be there on site to get them whatever they need.
okay, well, let's move on to the anniversary planning. Next year is our 75th anniversary, and the ELT had some discussion of ideas for some events that maybe we could have for the anniversary. I'm trying to remember what they are.
I have them.
One
I can drop them in the chat.
suggestion. Okay. Suggestion was having some sort of event like a old time radio show where people might have, so it's more of a social event, but it can be an online kind of thing and just a fun night where we might have some stories and what am I trying to say? What kind of theater is that, Kent?
Readers Theater.
Speakers theater, yeah. Where you have sound effects and all that sort of thing. And also, you can see in the chat, there was UUFA history book, or putting something regularly into the newsletter, like a little piece of history, or a piece of history. I don't know if that was more in the newsletter thing, right? Do you remember, Angie?
The stories, is that what you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just,
Or throughout the Sunday services as well.
yeah, I was just thinking that we could incorporate some memories of, some happy memories of the UFA and how they, from the history, starting from some of our older members who have been around longer, talk about some fun things that they've done.
I mean, if we could look through our list of people who, members who have been with the UUFA the longest,
Mm-hmm.
we can get them to contribute their memories, their story.
Just a happy memory of the place. It doesn't have to be anything long, or it's just to kind of realize how much this place impacts people and how it's impacted people for 75 years. And so I think that we talked about I thought of a booklet, like a history booklet or something with some stories in it, because I like to have something to remember, like a trinket, like a coin or a coaster or a magnet or something, something that I can say, oh yeah, that's when the 75th anniversary was, and so I don't know, I was just trying to think of a keepsake. That's what I was thinking of a keepsake that people could have.
Now, I wonder if we could put together like a virtual sort of time capsule.
We talked about time capsules, but I think we decided that people would forget we even made a time capsule, and then they'll take down the chimney sometime and and destroy it, and then it was fine.
Maybe they put one in 75 years ago and we don't know it, and we'll find it.
Exactly, it's behind that wall.
Well, we had a birthday of Lotus Miller just a couple weeks ago. She turned 95, 97. I wonder if she's been with the fellowship the whole time. Anyway, I'm just wondering if there are any members that have been with us throughout the whole life of the UUFA. Anyway,
Lotus probably isn't that far. I don't know what her memory is like these days.
Yeah, well,
she was in her late 30s or early 40s, I want to say.
I guess what I'm saying is it gets some of our longest members, I mean, the members who've been with us the longest to, contribute, some memories. So.
With you saying that, we talked about how there isn't a whole lot of history, things that we can read about of things that had happened at the UUFA. And so I was curious, what if we just did, like you said, Chris, sort of a time capsule, but sort of stories from our current members in a book. This is our 75th year, and these were our members, and these are their how they feel about the UFA right now. You know, so then 25 years from now, when they're doing the 100th anniversary, they'll have that booklet and say, hey, this is what it was like 75 or 25 years ago.
So we could have a retrospective and then a prospective, you know.
It all sounds like a tremendous amount of work.
And then we, of course, you know, it's nice to propose things, and then we would need to, you know.
My work is done.
yeah. See, I in the military we would call these the good idea fairies, and then.
Well, I was going to, is my mic on?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? I
Yes,
was going to suggest, you mentioned Old Time Radio Show. How about we engage somebody like Susan Franson, who's very involved down at KHOI. And we were certainly involved greatly in establishing KHOI. She does programming down there and produces things. Bob Andrus is down there.
Yeah.
What if you had an actual radio on KHOI, some kind of a special broadcast? Susan additionally used to be the historian trying to collect, in my experience, over the years, a lot of things about the history of the fellowship. So I wondered if she could be engaged to think about getting a group of people involved in KHOI and doing something to not only celebrate for us the history, but also let the community know that we've reached the milestone. It seems to me a way that we could perhaps get new members or get our name out there. We used to have things in the newspaper when I first came here. That's how I started coming to the fellowship building. And yet we haven't done as much telling our story out in the community. But I thought that's the kind of thing I would think KHOI might be really interested in since they are community radio.
So who is really passionate about this here right now, tonight?
Well,
And
I
who
did
wa-
that
who
to
wants to
call
take the lead?
my wife Cynthia McClure from producer extraordinary up from the basement, but I don't think she's responding. But I think that at one time there was a close relationship between our fellowship on the one side and KHOI on the other side, and and then through the years that there's been more of a separation between the two. Partly because of the sensitivity between the affiliation between the two. So I think we need to be kind of careful.
So KHOI was founded and funded originally by the fellowship. And they applied for the FCC permit that launched them into being a community organization. And there have been some people who stuck more on the KHOI side and some folks who stuck more on the fellowship side. But back to my question, who here is passionate about this and is interested in reaching out to some people? You don't necessarily have to stay the leader, but maybe help get the ball rolling.
I would help.
Okay. Because I can
I'm
do things.
excited about this. I think we should celebrate.
Yeah.
I would volunteer, except I've got a lot on my plate right now. So.
Okay, I can do things like look at the membership list and when people joined to kind of give you some contact people. And we've got 6 or 7 ideas here. So I think there's plenty to kind of just take and run.
I do have one question, Bradley. Is there a kind of a month or a date that we got established that we're looking at?
Probably.
Okay. When you find it, let us know.
Okay.
I just had a thought about maybe Carol Crosby might be interested in helping with something. She was working on something earlier this year before we all got closed, a social kind of thing. And this might be something that she maybe would be interested in working on. Would you be
And,
willing?
and I,
Go ahead.
I was gonna suggest, I don't know how Susan Franson would feel about, you know, helping out with this endeavor as well, because she has her foot kind of firmly in both camps right now. So, but at the same time, she, you know, she has her own responsibilities and stuff. So, I've got connections with her. So, through Cynthia, my wife. But maybe we can form a committee.
Oh, I remember Dorothy is that- being on some entertainment for some fellowship thing at one time.
Yeah, she's done some things with the pledge drive and things like that, I know.
Yeah, where she's done some singing, or I don't know, maybe she'd like performing in a radio show. And maybe some people who've been involved in actors might be interested in putting together something if we go with a radio show. I did find some radio or speakers theater scripts that we could even purchase if nobody wanted to write anything. There's some funny ones out there. But so thank you, Jane, for taking the lead. And I don't know if you'd want to contact Carol Crosby and Susan.
Ursula.
I can, and I can also
Sandra.
put something in the weekly newsletter about it to see if there's anyone else interested in helping.
Yeah.
I think Carol would be a good idea if she has an interest. She had come forth on her own to say that she was really interested in our doing the auction, you know, of our talents. And she was excited about that. And then we closed. And so she didn't do that. I don't know if her interest would transfer to this, but it's possible and she'd be good at
Yeah,
it.
that's,
We're interested.
I think she likes the idea of people being more social with each other.
Okay.
And it's not all learning and worship and all that sort of thing, but connecting with each other. So. All right.
May need to
Later in the year.
Anything anybody else has to say about that?
Yeah, may need to coordinate with Ursula Rudenberg with that too.
Ursula Rudenberg, okay.
Yeah.
Anything else on this topic? Anything anybody wants to say about the good of the fellowship?
So I did add the reevaluating ongoing collections for December, January, and our next closure checkpoint, which will be in January. And Peter Mayer is here on Sunday.
This coming Sunday.
What was the other thing you said, Bradley? Reevaluating what?
On the ongoing collections, so Black Lives Matter and Partner Church.
Elections. I was thinking
Collections, money, 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 money.
money.
Yes. Yep.
And our next board meeting then would be the
My bad.
second,
November 11th.
November 11th. Okay. All right. Our process person.
Seemed to move along very well with the,
do you have
can you hear me? I lost the bottom of my screen.
Yeah.
So I don't have my usual mute, unmute button, so I don't know what I'm doing here.
Yes, you know, we can hear you.
Okay. We seem to be going along really well. I was keeping track. We stayed very close to the time that we had listed for each item. And it seemed like there was a lot of discussion and a lot of good feeling. considering we're all in isolation here. And we finished now pretty much early. My report was due at 8:20 and it's only 8:10 by my watch, so we meet Chris's idea of a short meeting.
You know what? I used to hold my meeting.
Well, we went over last time.
On a stand-up basis. No one was allowed to sit down. So, anyway.
I'm glad that Jaden was able to join us tonight.
Thank you, Jaden.
Yes, thank you for being here. And I really appreciated your input.
Thank you. Yeah.
To that end, so I've been cleaning stuff out at the fellowship, and I ran into a nifty board orientation binder. So you can look forward to something coming to the full board probably in January, just kind of as a way to better orient our new board members. And that was something that was requested by Jaden. So hopefully we will improve the experience for everyone.
I would also like to pose an invitation to you all. We received at no charge a collection of posters encouraging people to vote, and we have placed them in our windows, and they really offer a broadly diverse perspectives, and I would invite you to drive by the fellowship and look at our windows.
Love it. Huh.
All right.
All right.
Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, I will adjourn our meeting. And thank you all for participating so fully tonight and staying with us. Kent will now extinguish our chalice.
You can help me blow it out. 1, 2,
Okay.
3.
Oh, we do such a good job. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, thank you.
That's phenomenal.